He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for a job. He didn't even tell her his name. But when this young black waiter helped a drunk billionaire get home safely, she came back 3 weeks later with a restaurant in his name. This isn't a fairy tale, it's real. And what happened next will restore your faith in kindness. He didn't know her name. She couldn't even remember his face. But that night, when a young black waiter helped a drunk billionaire out of a downtown sushi bar and into a cab, he didn't ask for anything in return. No selfies, no business card, no favor, just kindness. What happened next? Nobody saw coming, because 3 weeks later, that same billionaire made him the owner of one of the most exclusive Japanese restaurants in the entire city. How? Let's rewind. Troy Anderson was 26 years old, living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with his mother in South Los Angeles. He worked 2 jobs, washing dishes during the day and waiting tables at night, just to keep up with his mom's mounting hospital bills. She was recovering from a stroke and insurance didn't cover everything. Dreams of going back to school were pushed aside. Music production, on hold. He didn't complain. He didn't party. While other people his age scrolled through social media and posted selfies in clubs, Troy was tying on his apron and heading to work. He had one rule. No matter who walked in through those restaurant doors, he'd treat them with respect. Kindness wasn't optional. It was who he was. That night, near closing time, Troy was halfway through cleaning a table when the front doors opened and in walked a woman, mid-40s, dressed in a flawless white suit, hair tied back, and wearing dark sunglasses despite it being well past midnight. She moved like someone who was used to being followed, only she wasn't. She was alone. The manager's jaw dropped. He leaned in and whispered to the staff, "That's Mina Takahashi. She owns half the sushi spots in Tokyo and the most expensive restaurant in New York. Billionaire. Total legend." Everyone turned to look, but nobody dared to approach her. Mina sat down at the bar and quietly ordered a single tuna roll and warm sake. She barely touched the food, but the sake kept coming. She drank silently, lost in thought, occasionally checking her phone. Her expression was blank, tired, distant, like someone running from something or perhaps trying to forget something. As the minutes passed, it became clear she was drunk. When she finally stood up, she wobbled, lost her balance, and knocked over a chair. A few phones came out. Someone whispered, "Should we call security?" The manager hissed, "Don't go near her. She could sue if anything happens. Let her figure it out." But Troy didn't listen. Without hesitation, he rushed to her side, gently taking her arm. "Ma'am, you okay?" he asked. Mina blinked, confused. "You? Who are you?" "Just someone making sure you don't fall over." He led her to a nearby booth, brought her water, and sat beside her while she tried to collect herself. When she tried to stand again, Troy pulled out his phone. "I'll call you a car," he said. "You're not walking out of here like this." She laughed. "You? My bodyguard now?" He smiled. "No, ma'am, just someone who cares." He paid for the Uber himself and helped her outside. He made sure she got into the car safely, asked the driver to wait until she was inside her building, and then walked back in. No fanfare, no expectation, just a long sigh, a quick cleanup, and another late shift. He never told anyone what really happened. And Mina? She didn't even ask for his name. 3 weeks passed. Then one afternoon, Troy's manager called him to the office. "There's someone here asking for you. Says it's urgent." Confused, Troy walked to the front, only to find Mina Takahashi, completely sober, dressed in an elegant suit, hair pinned neatly, and this time, no sunglasses. She looked at him and smiled faintly. "Mr. Anderson, I presume?" Troy froze. "Yes, or ma'am?" "I've been trying to find you," she said. "Took some digging, but here we are." Troy blinked. "You remember me?" "Only flashes, but I remember how I felt that night. Safe, taken care of. And when I woke up and saw a receipt for the Uber, I realized someone went out of their way to help me. You could have taken a photo, sold it to the press. You could have left me there, but you didn't." Troy shrugged. "Just did what anyone should do." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "This is the deed to a restaurant. My team and I were about to sell it off. It wasn't performing well. But I decided, maybe I've been investing in the wrong people. Stocks, real estate, Brands? Maybe I should invest in someone with character. Troy's mouth opened, but no words came out. I want you to own it, 51%. You'll be in charge. My team will help train you. But it's your name on the door. You interested? Troy's heart raced. Why me? Because, she said softly, you helped me when I wasn't useful to you. That's the kind of person I want running my restaurant. The papers were signed that week. Within months, Troyama opened in Silver Lake, a Japanese fusion concept with modern music, streetwear staff uniforms, and a community-focused menu. It became a hit almost instantly. Food critics praised its unique style. Locals lined up around the block. Troy didn't just become a restaurant owner. He became a leader. He hired single moms, former inmates, teenagers from his own neighborhood. He made sure everyone was paid fairly, respected deeply, and treated like family. He never forgot where he came from. And every night, after the last customer left, he still helped clean the floors, just like he always did. Because kindness doesn't fade, it grows. And sometimes, one quiet moment of compassion is all it takes to change your entire life. Meet Troy Anderson, a 26-year-old man with calloused hands, tired eyes, and a heart far too big for the world he lived in. While most people his age chase dreams, parties, and hashtags, Troy was chasing hours, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. By day, he scrubbed greasy pans as a dishwasher in a cramped pizza shop, the scent of pepperoni permanently baked into his clothes. By night, he suited up as a waiter in one of downtown Los Angeles' most high-end sushi restaurants. There were no weekends off, no vacations, just clock in, clock out, send money home, repeat. He didn't complain. His mother, recently recovering from a stroke, had been his whole world since he was a boy. With medical bills mounting and no health insurance, Troy had shelved his own dreams, college, music production, even sleep, so she wouldn't have to worry. Sacrifice became his rhythm and survival his melody. And yet, despite the weight he carried, Troy was known for something rare: kindness. He greeted everyone with warmth, whether they walked in wearing a $1,000 suit or tattered jeans. He smiled through rude customers, calmly managed chaos during rush hours, and helped newer staff without being asked. He wasn't just liked, he was respected. There was something about him, something that said, this guy deserves more than he's getting. That night, just after 1 a.m., the sushi place was nearly closed. The ambient music had faded to a whisper, tables were being cleared, and the lights had dimmed to signal the end of service. The staff moved quietly, mopping, counting receipts, wrapping leftovers. Then the glass door creaked open. Everyone turned. In stepped a woman, tall, poised, and undeniably out of place for that hour. She wore a white designer pantsuit that looked like it cost more than most people's rent, perfectly polished heels and large sunglasses that hid her eyes, despite the fact that it was well past midnight. Her hair was slicked back into a sleek bun, and her steps, while graceful, were just a bit too slow, like someone trying to stay balanced while the world spun around them. The room fell into an awkward silence. Even the bartender paused mid-polish. Then the manager leaned over to Troy and whispered with urgency, "That's Mina Takahashi." Troy frowned. "Who?" "The sushi queen," the manager hissed. "Worth over $800 million. Owns Michelin star restaurants in Tokyo, Dubai, New York. She basically reinvented modern Japanese dining. If she's here, it means something." Everyone froze. The kitchen staff peeked out from behind the pass-through. One of the servers pulled out their phone under the table. Mina didn't look at anyone. She walked straight to the bar and sat down slowly, adjusting her seat with deliberate care. There was a faint pause, as if she was bracing herself to exist in public for a few more minutes. She waved a hand lightly and said, "Warm sake, tuna roll. That's all." The bartender nodded and got to work, extra careful with every pour. Troy watched from across the room. There was no entourage, no PR assistant, no bodyguards, just her. As her order arrived, Mina slowly sipped the warm sake, letting it rest on her tongue before swallowing. She nibbled the tuna roll, barely touching it. But the sake, that kept coming. She asked for another, then another. Her perfectly constructed posture began to loosen. Her eyes, barely visible behind the dark shades, looked glossy now. It didn't take long for the signs to show. The slight wobble of her hand as she reached for the cup. The way she leaned forward a little too much while laughing softly to herself. She was clearly drunk, or getting there fast. Still, no one dared say anything. The other staff kept glancing at each other nervously. One whispered, "Should we cut her off?" The manager shook his head. "Don't even think about it. If she's here, it's for a reason. And if we embarrass her, we'll be blacklisted. I've seen it happen." So they waited, uncomfortably. The bartender avoided eye contact. The manager paced in the back. Everyone tiptoed around the situation. But Troy didn't. Something about the moment tugged at him. Maybe it was the way she stared into the bottom of the cup, as if it held an answer she'd been searching for. Maybe it was the subtle tremble in her hand as she reached for the last sip. Maybe it was the quiet, tired energy she carried, like someone who had built empires but lost herself along the way. He stepped behind the bar, walked over slowly, and gently placed a glass of water in front of her. "Long night?" he asked, his tone soft. She looked up. Her sunglasses slipped slightly, revealing tired, bloodshot eyes. "Who are you?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Just someone who thinks you might need water more than sake right now." She smirked. "You judging me, waiter?" "No, ma'am, just making sure you get home okay." Mina stared at him for a moment, then let out a breath. "You know, most people try to impress me. You're not." Troy smiled. "I figure you've had enough of that." As she stood up, her legs faltered slightly. She caught herself against the bar, but the stumble didn't go unnoticed. Troy instinctively reached out, steadying her. "Let me get you a ride." Before she could protest, he already had his phone out, calling an Uber with his own account. He walked her out the door, holding her steady. When the car pulled up, he opened the door and helped her inside gently, like he'd done it 100 times before. "Thank you," she mumbled as the door closed. Troy didn't reply. He just nodded, and just like that, she was gone. No tips, no introductions, no mention of who she really was. Just a tired woman helped by a stranger who didn't expect anything in return. What Troy didn't know then was that the universe had just watched him pass a test. And 3 weeks later, that same woman, Mina Takahashi, would walk back into his life with a gift no one could have imagined. A restaurant, a chance, and a future, all because of one simple act of kindness. Absolutely. Here is the expanded 800-word version of the section you provided, written in paragraph format and tailored for engaging YouTube storytelling. After finishing what little she had ordered, Mina Takahashi quietly set her chopsticks down and pushed back her chair. The restaurant had grown even quieter now. Most of the staff were cleaning, and the last few customers had already paid and left, but all eyes were on her. She stood up and instantly stumbled. It was subtle at first, a slight misstep, but then her heel slipped and she reached out to the bar for balance, knocking over a glass of half-drunk sake in the process. The crash echoed like a bomb in the hushed room. People gasped. A couple of staff members instinctively moved toward her, but froze halfway. The bartender's hand hovered above the counter, unsure. Even the customers who had been heading out the door paused, turning to look. Then came the sound of phones unlocking. One of the younger servers subtly pointed their camera toward her. The others whispered, nervously watching the situation unfold like a slow-motion train wreck. The manager rushed out from the kitchen, face pale. He hissed under his breath, just loud enough for the staff to hear. "Do not touch her. If she falls, fine. But if she sues, we're done. Don't go near her." Everyone froze. No one wanted to risk it. This was Mina Takahashi, the billionaire. A woman with enough lawyers to bury the entire staff under a mountain of lawsuits. Nobody wanted to be the one to make the wrong move. But one person didn't listen. Troy Anderson had been standing near the kitchen doorway, wiping down a tray, watching all of this unfold. His jaw clenched as he looked around at the frozen staff, the phones recording, the fear in the manager's voice. Something about it didn't sit right with him. He didn't see a billionaire. He saw a woman, clearly intoxicated, vulnerable, and alone. So he stepped forward. Quietly, calmly, without making a scene, Troy walked up to her and gently touched her elbow. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you might want to sit down for a moment." Mina blinked, dazed. Her glasses were slightly crooked now, and her normally confident posture had given way to something looser, more human. She looked at him, not with recognition, but with confusion, like she was trying to place him in a world that was spinning too fast. Troy offered her a glass of water, holding it steady while she sat back down on the edge of a booth. She took a sip slowly, both hands cradling the glass. "You okay?" he asked, kneeling beside her, so he was at eye level. She didn't answer immediately, just nodded vaguely. Then a lopsided smirk curled on her lips. "You?" she muttered. "What are you?" "My bodyguard now." Troy chuckled under his breath. "No, ma'am. Just a guy who doesn't want you walking into traffic tonight." She gave a short laugh, tired, almost grateful, but her eyes betrayed her condition. She wasn't in any shape to make it home on her own, not without risk. Troy didn't hesitate. He pulled out his phone and opened the Uber app, keying in the destination he had quickly found on Google, the Takahashi penthouse, a luxury residence known only to the city's elite. Within seconds, a black car was en route. "You don't have to do this," she muttered, watching him. "I know," he said simply. He didn't ask for money, didn't mention her fame, didn't angle for an opportunity, just helped. When the car pulled up, Troy took her gently by the arm and led her outside. She leaned on him slightly, her balance still uncertain, but she didn't resist. Not once. Outside, the driver opened the door, clearly briefed on who he was picking up. He didn't say a word. Troy helped Mina into the back seat and made sure she was buckled in before closing the door. Then he leaned in and quietly told the driver, "Take her home. Safely. Don't leave until she's inside." He handed the man an extra $20 in cash from his own wallet. Before the car pulled away, Mina looked up at Troy one last time. The lights of the restaurant reflected off the tinted window, casting a soft glow across her face. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice now stripped of its usual power. Just raw. Honest. Troy nodded. "Take care, ma'am." And just like that, the car pulled away into the night, taillights fading into the distance. He didn't leave a name, didn't leave a business card, didn't drop hints about wanting a job or recognition. To him, it was just the right thing to do. He turned around, walked back into the restaurant, and grabbed a mop to clean up the spilled sake. The manager didn't say a word. The staff just stared at him, unsure whether he was brave or reckless. But Troy didn't care. His heart felt lighter, even though his shift still wasn't over. No one else saw it for what it was, but the universe did. And 3 weeks later, that moment of quiet compassion would echo back louder than Troy ever could have imagined. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness leads to the biggest change of your life. 3 weeks had passed since that strange and unforgettable night. For Troy Anderson, life had returned to its usual rhythm. Early mornings, double shifts, exhaustion laced with hope. The memory of helping the mysterious, intoxicated woman, who later turned out to be billionaire Mina Takahashi, had faded into a private story he kept to himself. He didn't tell his co-workers. He didn't share it online. He hadn't even mentioned it to his mother. It was just one of those moments that came and went, like a storm that passes in the night, leaving no trace but the feeling that something important had occurred. Then on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. Troy had just finished taking inventory in the storage room when his manager's voice came crackling through the walkie. "Troy, back office. Now there's, someone here to see you." He wiped his hands, confused, and made his way to the office. His first thought was that maybe there was an issue with his hours, or worse, a customer complaint. But when he stepped into the small office and looked through the one-way glass window toward the front of the restaurant, he stopped cold. There she was, wearing a crisp black suit with tailored perfection and expensive heels that clicked with authority against the marble floor. Her sunglasses were back on. Her hair was perfectly coiled in a tight bun. In her left hand, a sleek black leather briefcase. The same woman he had walked out into the street with 3 weeks ago. The same woman he'd helped into a car, expecting never to see again. Mina Takahashi. She turned as if sensing him. Her expression was unreadable behind the glasses, but her presence alone was magnetic. Troy stepped out of the office slowly, his heart thudding against his chest. As he approached, she raised an eyebrow. "Do you always help drunk strangers get home, Mr.?" He blinked. Anderson. Troy Anderson." She removed her sunglasses, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes. They scanned him, searching, calculating, yet calm. "I don't remember much from that night," she said, her voice low but confident. "But I remember the feeling. I remember not being embarrassed. I remember someone caring enough to help, not hover. And I've had my team look into you." Troy's brows furrowed slightly, unsure of what that meant. "You've been working 2 jobs," she continued, "supporting your mother after a stroke. No criminal record, nothing questionable online. Excellent staff reviews. Customers love you. Co-workers respect you." He opened his mouth to respond but couldn't find the words. Mina took a small step closer. "That right?" Troy nodded, still stunned. Yes, that's right." Without another word, she opened the briefcase and turned it toward him. Inside were neatly stacked documents, a thick folder with tabs, and an envelope with a wax seal. "These are legal transfer documents," she said. 51% ownership. One of my Japanese fusion restaurants in Silver Lake. Underperforming, but with potential. I'm giving it to you." He stared at her, dumbfounded. I'm sorry, you're giving me what?" She nodded calmly. "A restaurant. You'll run it. I'll teach you the basics. My team will handle operations until you're up to speed. But make no mistake, it will be your business, your name on the books, your decisions." Troy's heart pounded in his chest. He took a step back, blinking hard. "Why, me?" Mina paused for a moment, as if the answer required more than words. Finally, she said, "Because you didn't ask for anything." She looked him directly in the eye. "That night I was vulnerable. You didn't take a photo. You didn't post about it. You didn't try to network or pitch an idea. You didn't even give me your name. You just helped. That's rare in my world." She walked slowly toward one of the bar stools and sat down, crossing her legs. "You want to know how I got to where I am? It wasn't luck. It was people. People who saw something in me before I even saw it in myself. And when I got older, I promised I'd do the same. Invest in character, not just credentials. You, Troy, have what no resume can buy." Troy was frozen in place. His thoughts raced. This had to be a joke, a test, a trap maybe. But as he looked at her, he realized there was no trace of a smirk, no sign of insincerity. She meant every word. I don't have any experience running a restaurant," he finally stammered. "Good," Mina said with a small smile. "That means you won't come in thinking you know everything. You'll learn, and I'll make sure you learn from the best. But this opportunity, it's real, and it's yours, if you want it." He looked down at the documents. They weren't fancy, just typed up legal forms with highlighted sections and a space for his signature. "I don't know what to say," he murmured. "Say yes," she replied softly. Troy stood there in silence for several seconds, the hum of the restaurant fading around him. He thought of his mother. He thought of the pizza shop, the greasy kitchen floors, the smell of sweat and soy sauce that never left his clothes. And then he looked at Mina, the billionaire, the legend, and realized she saw something in him that no one else had bothered to look for. He reached for the pen. The news broke across Los Angeles like wildfire. "Billionaire gives sushi restaurant to stranger who helped her while drunk." The headline ran on every major site by morning. Gossip blogs, business pages, and local news stations couldn't get enough of it. A story too surreal to believe. A feel-good fairy tale in a cynical world. Social media exploded. Twitter threads debated whether it was real. TikTokers made reaction videos and dramatic reenactments. Instagram filled with memes and quotes like "kindness pays off," and "this is what good karma looks like." TV stations called the restaurant nonstop, begging for interviews with Troy and Mina. Talk shows pitched appearances. Reporters showed up at the restaurant trying to catch a glimpse of the young man who had, apparently, won the billionaire lottery. But it wasn't luck, and it wasn't a lottery. It was the result of one quiet act of kindness, an act that Troy Anderson never thought would be noticed, let alone rewarded. The man who had once juggled 2 jobs just to keep his mother's hospital bills paid was now stepping into a new world, But he wasn't walking in blindly. Instead of throwing him into chaos, Mina Takahashi made sure he was ready. She personally arranged for Troy to be trained by her private culinary team, chefs flown in from Japan, New York, and even Sao Paulo, where she owned another restaurant. They didn't just teach him how to prepare sushi, they taught him the soul behind it. He learned the difference between sashimi and nigiri, not just in taste, but in technique and meaning. He learned how rice temperature affected flavor, how a perfect cut could turn ordinary fish into art. He spent hours in markets learning how to source the freshest bluefin, the sweetest uni, and the crispest nori. He took notes, asked questions, and, most importantly, he listened. Mina also taught him the business side, how to manage a budget, how to lead a team without crushing spirits, how to build a restaurant not just for profit, but for purpose. And then, 6 months later, it happened. The grand opening. Troyama, a fusion of his name and Japanese tradition, stood proudly in Silver Lake. The outside was sleek and modern, with a minimalist sign and soft ambient lighting. Inside, every detail had a story. A mural of his mother hung near the entrance. Tables made of reclaimed wood from his old neighborhood were used for dining. The menu blended traditional Japanese with Southern Californian flair, ahi tacos, miso shrimp and grits, and his now famous teriyaki short rib rolls. By 5 p.m. on opening night, the line stretched around the block. People came from everywhere, locals, foodies, influencers, even celebrities. But Troy stayed calm. He greeted every guest with the same warmth he once gave strangers at his waiting tables. He checked on the kitchen. He poured water. He wiped tables. He picked up trash outside between seatings. Because even now, he hadn't forgotten. He hadn't forgotten the years of sacrifice. The nights he went to bed with sore feet and an empty stomach. The shifts where customers barked orders and left no tips. The manager who told him not to help Mina, the Uber he paid for with money he didn't really have. He hadn't forgotten who he was before he became a headline. So Troy did something unexpected with his new role. He hired local kids, some with no experience, some fresh out of juvenile detention, others who just needed a chance. He paid fair wages, gave full benefits, and provided free meals to staff during every shift. He offered flexible hours to single moms and full-time students. He created a mentorship program where struggling teens could shadow chefs, learn skills, and build confidence. Troy even partnered with a local nonprofit to offer culinary training for former inmates. One of his line cooks had once been arrested for shoplifting groceries to feed his siblings. Now, he was saving for culinary school, and Troy made sure every single person on staff knew one thing. This isn't just a restaurant, this is a second chance. The media called him the soul of sushi. Food critics praised not just the flavors, but the philosophy behind the restaurant. Mina, who rarely gave interviews, made one simple statement when asked why she had done it. Because investing in people changes everything. But despite the success, the acclaim, and the fact that Troy now had equity in $1 million business, he never let it go to his head. Every night, long after the customers had left, he stayed behind. He rolled up his sleeves. He helped scrub the counters. He took out the trash. He wiped down the windows. And he swept the floors just like he had when he was a dishwasher. Because kindness, he believed, should never forget where it started. And neither should we. Roy didn't do it for attention. He did it because it was right. And in return, his entire life changed. A simple act of kindness turned into a legacy. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and click the bell icon so you never miss another powerful story like this. Because the next one might just change the way you see the world.